I built my entire financial life around one question. Who do I know? Who knows who I need to know? And I will tell you this right now, you already know the people that can help your dreams come true. If I create more value for you, I will never have to worry about receiving value from you. So create more value than you get, give more than you receive, and stay in touch with your clients. If you want your clients for life, you have to talk to them during their life. Hi, everybody. So good. How about you guys? You all loosened up? Loosen up and ready. Huh?
Yeah, there we go.
Well, takes all the pressure off.
To get it started, let's give a hand to the Todd Father. That's what they call him, right?
The Todd Father. Let's
I
go.
asked him today when we were doing a podcast together, I said, man, is it offensive to you for me to call you one of the original OGs? Right? And what was your answer? You remember?
No, I said no because I've been introduced 3 times this year so far as the Todd Father. Yeah. So I should be the original of something, right?
Well, we want to thank you guys for coming tonight. When we built this Greatness Factory, the whole concept was to bring great people together, to bring world-class talent to this place. I don't think there's another place like this, specifically in Nashville, Tennessee, where you can get these kind of thought leaders that come together to learn, to grow, to connect, to exchange business. We've exchanged over $200 million worth of deals have been sourced in this building. Since I opened it about a year ago, we've raised over $30 million of capital, and I think this is the place to be if you want to get a seat at the big table. So thank you for being here tonight, man, and doing this for me.
You need another 0 on those numbers.
Yes, we do.
I'm happy to help you with that. Yeah.
He called me one day and said, you need a couple more zeros on your numbers. Would you like help with that? Yes, I would. Yeah. All right, so let's get started because we're going to talk about high trust selling. That's kind of a thing you become known for a book that sold a lot of copies of that. When did you click into gear on this high trust thing?
Well, so this is a little vulnerable. Have you ever been vulnerable?
Absolutely.
I grew up an entrepreneur. I wanted to sell the most amount of candy in Little League. So I hired my brothers, and instead of going door to door, we set up tables in the middle of the street. So all the cars coming home from work had to stop, and they had to buy candy to get through to get to their house. So that was my first entrepreneurial experience. But I got really serious about being a business owner when I was a sophomore in high school. And I came up with this idea that if you take the edge of a penny off of a penny, it has the same weight as a dime. And so I was in metal shop working hard every single day, taking the outer edges off of pennies. And I went and tried them out in the market first, and I put 2 pennies in a Coke machine. I got my Coke, and I got a nickel back. And I figured I was onto something. And so I went into the penny manufacturing dime experience, and word got out, and people started wanting my pennies, so I was giving my pennies out freely, and kids were going all throughout town trying to figure out which machines would take my pennies and which ones wouldn't. And I was getting a little cocky, and I grew up, loving Jesus and God, and I don't know why I became a near felon, but what ended up happening is the gas station that was the most favorable gas station for my pennies, they couldn't figure out what was going on because they were losing Coke bottles all day long, and they would take the coins out at the end of the day, and there's nothing but pennies in the coin thing. And so one day they put a sting together, and they knew that we always came by around 3:15, and about 3 o'clock they went out, emptied the coin tray so that they would have proof. And so 3 of us were riding home. My first buddy went, 2 pennies, Coke back, nickel, boom. Second buddy went, 2 pennies, Coke back, nickel, boom. I go, 2 pennies, no Coke. So I do what every smart felon does, right? I shake the Coke machine as if that's going to make my penny work. And the guy comes running out, and he goes, "Stop, we got you." And he and 2 of the mechanics held all 3 of us. And they called the Tustin Police Department. And the cops came screaming into the gas station. 3 cars, 3 cops, 3 guys, all using my pennies. and we didn't get arrested. We got taken in, and they had to call our parents. They called my folks. It just so happened that afternoon we were leaving town as a family for a Christian conference. And my dad had a talking to me, and I didn't get arrested. And following Tuesday over the intercom in school, so there's 30 people in the class, and here's the intercom. Todd Duncan, come to the administrator's office immediately. The FBI is here. I learned right then and there, man, I better study trust. I better study trust. And they just told me if I ever did it again, I would be in jail for up to 10 years, and I would have a $10,000 fine for defacing government property. That was the only break in trust I think I ever had that could have sent me to jail. So that's when I got serious about it.
Wow.
No, I mean, but I didn't grow up like a crook.
Yeah.
You know, I was just an entrepreneur. I was taking pennies and
Well, you ended up
increasing their value.
Like a good entrepreneur does, right? Take a lower level resource to a higher level of productivity. All right, so at some point you ended up in the mortgage business. By raise of hands, how many mortgage people do we have in the room tonight? Let's look. You brought them out. I see my buddy over there. It's my best friend, Brandon Burt. We went to elementary school together, high school together, college together. We're college roommates. He was a high school basketball coach.
Yeah.
And I finally convinced him to get out of being a teacher and get into mortgage business. He's doing about $100 million a year every year for the last 7 years.
That's it?
Yep. So why did you do that? Why did you get into the mortgage business? And because when I was watching your videos to prepare for this, I kept coming back to, I need to go deeper with my clients, right? I need to focus. It needs to be more relational versus transactional. And when I watch the videos to prepare for this, I'm like, we could all do a lot better with what Todd teaches. Okay, so somewhere that came along to you, like this is the way, this is going to increase sales. This is a pathway. Talk a little bit about that.
Well, I mean, nobody gets into if you're sane, nobody like at 7 or 8 years old says, "What do you want to be when you grow up?" And they go, "I want to be in the mortgage business." It just doesn't happen, right? And nobody wakes up and going, "My dream job is doing mortgages." I happen to be wanting to be a doctor because my dad was a doctor, and I won't bore you with the story, but he gave me 2 semesters to bring my GPA up. I was in pre-med. GPA was about 1 my first semester. No, I'm not kidding you. And my dad's paying out-of-state tuition. And but I had joined the ski team in Colorado, and I figured skiing was more important than grades. And so he told me to bring it up. And I brought it up to a 1.4, and I thought, man, that's impressive, right? I went from an F to like a D something, right? Truth be told, we do have one. Oh no, it came at me. Truth be told, I didn't like medicine. I didn't like biology. I didn't like any of that. But the long and short of it is, I had this moment with my father. My father in the driveway said, after that second semester, he said, "You know, you're not going to be a very good doctor, and even if you want to be, I'm not paying for it." And I looked at my dad and I said, "Dad, what should I do?" My dad said, "You're really good with people. You should go to business school." And so he said, there's 3 great schools in California. Stanford, my alma mater, is a great school. USC is a great school. I'm not paying for either one of those. And he said, there's a little state school. It's called Cal State Fullerton. They have the 3rd best business school in the state. So I went there and I graduated with honors. So I figured I was in my niche, right? Studied business, studied marketing, studied finance. I liked making money. I figured money was the solution. If I could help people make money, I would make money. And so I chose mortgages and did almost 6,000 loans in 11 years. 551 units a year. Is that a lot of units? Smoking, right?
Wow.
Yeah. And then I started a business to teach mortgage people how to get rich. But then I went global. Got out of mortgage and just went global. So, but that's how it all started. Helping people make smart choices. And biggest expense of their life, biggest debt of their life, biggest dream of their life. It all kind of worked out.
So let's talk about the method that would become high trust selling. Okay, so somewhere along the way you develop this methodology. This becomes a book called High Trust Selling, becomes a bestseller. You become known for that. Talk us through what high trust selling is.
The book's subtitle is The Nature of What I Believe Every Human Needs to Understand About Business. And that subtitle is Make More Money in Less Time with Less Stress. And when I ask people how many of you like that idea, there's not one person that does not raise their hand. And my whole game plan was how to bust the myth that to get more, you have to do more. And one of the ways that I busted that myth was I had the good fortune of running into somebody who became my mentor. And he said, you have to make a decision in business. And he said, you have to choose your business model. And your business model can either be transactions or it can be relationships. Which do you think is the right answer? And I was naive enough to I didn't know. I mean, I really didn't know. And so I smartly asked him, I said, well, what's the difference? Hi, guys, I didn't mean to cut you out over there. I said, what's the difference? And he said, transactions will make you a living, relationships will make you a fortune. And what I started understanding at the age of 23 was I was not going to be a one and done business owner. I was not going to spend time, money, and energy getting business to come at me, do that business, and not keep that relationship to do all the other business that relationship may need and be introduced to every single person they knew, because I took care of them, they would take care of me. And so I built my whole business model on not acquiring new customers. I built my business model on answering a question, one equals how many? Like one could equal one. You get a deal, you close it, you get paid, right? Or if I do a really good job with one, and that one owns a small business and they have 4 employees, one could equal 4. That one person could equal 4. And I started realizing that, every single human that I have the chance to be in front of, the only thing that matters is that they trust me. If they trust me, they'll buy from me. And if they don't trust me, there's no way I can talk them into trusting me. So at the age of 24, I decided that I would go full in, all in, on no more marketing budget, no more marketing expense. I would build my business by to answer that question, referrals. I'll give you an example. I did a loan for an airline pilot. Really, really nice couple. And when we closed their loan, David said to me, he said, this was the most frictionless experience I've ever had. All my friends say that getting a mortgage is like getting 7 root canals at once without Novocaine. It's just like horrendous, right? And he said, this was a pleasure. And I said, so David, remember what we started out with? If you at the end felt that this was a great experience, you would go out of your way to find me people that I could help, that know, love, and trust you, that with your endorsement could know, love, and trust me. So I built my business on endorsement value. And you guys all need to write that down, because endorsement value is the cheapest business building idea you will ever have. If Coach Burt calls me and says, Todd, I did business with this guy. What's your friend's name? Brandon. I did business with this guy, Brandon. He's the best mortgage professional in Nashville. I promise you, the results you're going to get are going to be spectacular. Trust me. I'm not going to call Brandon and talk about price. I'm not going to say, how much is this going to cost me? We're not going to nickel and dime each other with, fees and things like that. He's coming at me because there's a trust bond there. So the pilot, what do you think he does? He's in the air one day. He's talking to a first officer. They're on the same flight together. And the first officer says, my wife and I are buying a house. You just guys got a house. How was your mortgage experience? And they're at 35,000 feet. And David is first officer selling Todd Duncan. And so when they land, I get a message from David, and he calls my pager and says, hey, pager, yes. That's how the whole thing started, pager. And they were dumb. There was not a smart pager in the world, like a smartphone. But he says, I was talking to my friend Mark, and Mark's a pilot, and he needs help with a mortgage. So I do Mark's mortgage. How much did it cost for me to acquire Mark? 0. Okay, now wait, it gets even better. So Mark and I do a deal together, And Mark, as you could just tell, he's been flying planes since the age of 2 in his head, right? Or just walking around the house with planes. And so he refers me in the next 2 months to 9 more pilots. Okay, now wait, it gets better. So how many pilots are we at right now? 11. The 11th pilot was 50 years old. His name was Tony. And Tony told me after we closed his loan that he just accepted a position to be the executive director of the California Airline Pilots Association that had 3,800 pilots. I did 379 loans for pilots in 4 years. With what? Without one sales call, okay, without any marketing, haggling, negotiation, pricing, nothing. Smooth, easy, done deal. I built my entire financial life around one question. You should write this down. Who do I know who knows who I need to know? And I will tell you this right now, everybody in this room, no matter what you want to do, you already know the people that can help your dreams come true.
Yep.
You already know them. So that was the basis of it. And then what high trust became was, if I create more value for you, I will never have to worry about receiving value from you. And so I never had call reluctance in my life because all I was doing was giving. You know, that one real estate agent that gave me that first pilot, guess how many homes she sold to pilots? Hello. $10,000 a real estate transaction in commission. And she made about 1.7 million for me that she wouldn't have made. So create more value than you get, give more than you receive, and stay in touch with your clients. Clients for life. It's a very exciting decision that you can make. And to keep your clients for life, you have to talk to them during their life. Otherwise, it's like catch and release on a river, right?
Whoa. I want you to say that again because you went fast through it. And I want you to slow that down because it's common sense is not always common practice, folks.
Woo!
Okay? So say what you just said about for life.
If you want your clients for life, you have to talk to them during their life.
That sounds simple.
They'll find another mortgage company, they'll find another business, they'll find whatever, right? And so what I did, I'll give you an example of what I did. I'll give you 2 examples. So in mortgage, what I did is I decided that every year I would do an annual mortgage review. And I invented that concept in 1985. And so every year I would call my clients. When I closed the loan, I had a paper file folder system. They hadn't invented a CRM yet. And I would take that closing statement for that borrower and I would move it to the next year in the folder that said the next year. And then I would review that folder every single month, and every closing statement in that folder that needed to be scheduled for some time within that year went to that month. And in that month, I reviewed that a week before the next month. I moved everything in the monthly folder to the daily 1 through 31s. That's how I stayed in touch with my clients. And here's what's interesting. When I would meet with them, I would ask them 5 questions every year. I would ask them, and this is mortgage, you don't have to write it down, but what are your 5 questions? I would ask them, how are you doing with your job and employment? How are you doing with your debt and savings? Have you received any bonuses or intend to receive any promotions, partnerships, or whatever? Have there been any changes in the dynamic of your family? Okay, and how are you doing with your CPA, financial planner, legal team, etc., right? And I would ask those questions because if a borrower told me, you know what, we're getting ready to start a family. So this 2-bedroom condo we bought, it ain't gonna work. And we're probably gonna get pregnant in the next year or so. And so that's an update on the family. And then I'm gonna go, okay, so do we need to plan for the next house? Yeah, great. When would you like to begin? As soon as we get pregnant. And I go, okay, fair enough. When are you gonna start? No, I mean, this is the kind of rapport This is the kind of rapport that you would have with your clients. It's like, when are you going to start? Like tonight? When do you want your baby to be born? Work backward like a business plan. Just say, okay, here we go. No, I'm kidding a little bit here. But what ended up happening is, so I called the real estate agent that sold them the 2-bedroom, brought her that listing. She would have never gotten that because she doesn't, those people just don't do this. Do you know there's only 2% of realtors in America that will do an annual real estate review with their clients? 2%. Like, why don't you ask your client once a year, when are you going to sell? When are you going to buy? What are your real estate dreams for the next 5 to 10 years? So they wouldn't do it, so I would do it. So I bring the listing back to her. She finds the new home, okay? I do the loan for the seller of the new home that's going to go buy another home. And so I get like 4 transactions out of one client with whom I have a what? Relationship.
Now, let's do some math here, okay? Because this is a stat that I use a lot. I think it's relevant to every industry, but specifically we have a lot of real estate and mortgage. Average person, and I want you to, no matter what you do for a living, I want you to think about this. The average person's going to purchase how many homes in their lifetime?
They will do 7 financial transactions, somewhere between 3 and 4 homes.
Okay, so for all the real estate people in here, I always ask, how many of those would you like to get? And everybody always tells me what? All of them. Okay? Each satisfied person should give you how many referrals over the lifetime of the consumer?
Well, if you want to do this math real quick, I will just tell you that. Let's see how good I am this evening. If I make $5,000 in commission on a mortgage loan, and I develop a 5-year loyalty cycle, in the old days I would say, throw me that phone. And then I would throw it against the wall and break it. What'd you ask me?
I asked you okay, we're talking about
Got
lifetime
it. Okay.
value of the client.
So $5,000 a deal. I'm going to get 4 loans in 5 years. Okay, so how much is that per borrower? $20,000. I'll get another repeat loan. I might get a refinance. Might get 2 referrals, to other people that might need real estate, right? So I'm making $20,000 per person. Okay, so if I have 500 buyers that I've done loans for, and I'm making $20,000 every 5 years from that group of people. Somebody do the math real quick.
10 million.
Okay, now divide that by 5 years. $2 million a year in commissions just by loving on 500 people and never letting them forget. So guess what I told every borrower? By the time we're done, I want you to feel so confident in my team and myself that you will trust us with every mortgage transaction and maybe even referrals to anything you need financial advice on for the rest of your life. Do we have a deal?
Wow.
And I've already planted the seed. So now every day, instead of hunting for loans, I sit in my ergonomic chair with my beautiful headset on, and I just say, next, who am I going to call now? Who am I going to call now? My whole practice was built around 3 days a week, calling 20 to 30 clients, and then 2 days a week doing loans. And pretty soon I got this idea of I could be really good at this, and I could work less and make more. Do you know that a consultation with a brand new borrower takes 3 times longer than it does with a borrower referred to you? So now I can do 4 transactions in an hour instead of 1. Make more money.
Yep.
In
less time,
with
less headache, less
stress. There you go.
So let's think about that right there, okay? When I ask the question, so let's just pretend for a second it takes X number of touches to follow up on a person to convert them to a client, right? On a new person, right? On a new person, stats say 7 to 15 touches 80% of the time on a new lead. The leads he's talking about doesn't take 7 to 15 touches. The sale has already been made. You with me? He's the buyer versus the seller. Now, when you ask that question, how many of us in this room think we should do better based on what he just said after the sale is made to pick up that much money? Yes or no? Now, the stats show me that 98% of mortgage people and real estate people never follow up in a meaningful way after the sale is over. Although they sit there and tell me, oh yeah, I want to get all the deals. See, this is just pure laziness, folks. Yes or no? So where there's no engagement, there's no transformation. Where there's no transformation, there's no referability. Now think about that. So somewhere along the way, this was a revelation for you, because you're just going to the mortgage. It's not like you popped into the mortgage business as this guru. You watched somebody, you were mentored by somebody, you were activated by somebody, and you go, this is the way I'm going to do it, right? Talk about that.
Curiosity is a very advantageous way to operate a business. And one of my principles, and it's an irrefutable principle, I have 5, but I'll just give you the first one. I might give you the first 2. The first irrefutable principle is everything can be improved. And if you don't own that, then you should just go get a regular paycheck and operate safely for the rest of your life. But if everything can be improved, then you can improve everything. Like I say to people all the time, I go, all it takes to be successful is 24/7. Just get after it. And people go, what do you mean 24/7? I go, seriously. Be so good that you can work 24 hours a week, 7 months a year, and call it a day. No, but see, that's a belief system. That's a belief system. And when you start to understand what we're talking about here, we're talking about lightening the load. You have this thing called life. It is life force. You are pouring life force into work in exchange for revenue. Okay? You would be an idiot if you did not understand I should work less and make more. How do I do that? How do I control my own destiny? How do I create more value so that I don't have to work and make somebody else rich? You know, why don't I take my life force and why don't I build wealth for myself and my family? And so this decision of relationship is of paramount importance, because I'll tell you what ends up happening. We got one gal that in January of last year, she came into coaching, and we measure everything in the straight commission world, which any business owner is straight commission. Let's face it, right? At some level, you're straight commission. If your company's doing good, you can have a salary, take a little bit of a bonus, but all of us are straight commission. And so if you understand this and you go, okay, so then what really matters is how much am I making per hour? And so this gal comes in and we measure hourly rate. We measure how many hours do you work and how much money do you make, because everything rises and falls on how good are you in the hours you work. Nobody in this room gets a paycheck based on how many hours you worked. You get a paycheck based on how many things you did that generate revenue. And so at the end of the day, it's like, I'm not going to go to work and not generate revenue, and I'm not going to do things that don't generate revenue. She's at $32 an hour. In 10 months, she was at $750 an hour. How do you go from $30 an hour, which is $65,000 a year, okay, to over $700 an hour, which is $1.5 million a year in 10 months? You get rid of everything that doesn't make money. And so what we have to do is we have to understand that, and I'm not trying to play a role here where I'm being like, be a jerk. It is your life. And I've seen too many marriages wrecked. I've seen suicide. I've seen obesity. I've seen early heart attacks. I've seen people so stressed out, and 40 years later, they're still stressed out. Now, does that mean my road has been easy? No. I've made millions, lost millions, made a lot of dumb choices, made a few really good choices. But we all have this chance to measure our own exchange rate, right? And family matters more than anything. Health matters more than anything, including family if you want family. So your health has to be a priority. And if you're not centered on a higher power, in my sense, that's God's got a plan for my life. If you're not centered on that, then everything is going to get wishy-washy. And at the end of the day, stuff happens. And the beautiful thing about curiosity is everything that doesn't happen the way you thought it was going to happen can be a gift. Can I tell an example?
Absolutely.
So I've been in the event business, been doing stuff all over the world for 30 years, millions and millions of clients. Some of the biggest banks in the world buy IP from me. And I do an event every year called Sales Mastery, which usually has a couple thousand people. COVID hits. We have no certainty that we're going to be able to host a live event. Are you with me? Say yes. Yes. Okay, so I've got to do something really fast, right? Because I've got 9 months before my event. We don't know if a hotel can host us. We don't know if attendees have to be 6 feet apart. We don't know anything, right? So the safe bet is I'm going to do the same thing I always do. I'm going to fly all the speakers in, but instead of flying them into a hotel, I'm going to fly them into a Netflix studio in Atlanta, and we're going to do the show, and we're going to live stream it. So we do this deal where we charge companies $35,000, $45,000, and $55,000, depending on their employment size. You can invite the entire company, and you can invite all of your clients. That was my offer. So the second day of the event, remember how many people come live usually? 2,000. We don't live stream it. We're live streaming because of COVID. Second day of the event, my chief technology officer comes up to me and says, you have 44,000 devices connected right now in 13 countries. And so I start scratching my head and getting really curious. I'm not going to do events anymore live. Now, it doesn't mean lie. I mean, I love this, right? I love this. So I decide after that I'm going to invent a technology company that brings learning to the entire world. And I find a technology partner, and we are now in 71 countries. We have the biggest companies in the world signing up. All of our language models are translatable in 100 languages on demand, and 100 languages fluently spoken and literacy typed. You can talk to any of our coaches in Mandarin if you'd like. You won't understand what we're saying, and they won't understand what they're saying because it's our AI portion of the deal. But what I'm talking about is a curiosity. Wow, what does this mean? If my goal in life is to awaken every day, and all I want every day is just one more. I just want to hear from one more person that their life has been transformed. That's it. I have nothing to prove. I have everything to offer. I'm grateful for that. Yeah. But when you all of a sudden understand that we now have a company that is global, and it came from a thing called COVID, that is the curiosity y'all need to have. Like, what's good about this?
Hey, this is Coach Micheal Burt. I'm here at the Greatness Factory today, the Level 10 podcast studio. And as you can see behind, I got new imaging. I got a new concept. The big table is a metaphor for the biggest opportunities that are available to you that you're trying to work toward in your life. We're going to go to work on activating 3 parts of your nature. You first, that's science of winning. That's habits of the top 1%. That's the language that we use every single day. That's the activation of prey drive. That's the A to B exercise that we do. And then we're going to go to work on your business. And the business is got these 6 core components, right? The activation of your team's prey drive, the explanation of value, the lead generation system, the follow-up and conversion, the engagement after the sale. We then move to activating your wealth. 8-figure people stuck in 6-figure vehicles. How do we expose you to some of the best thought leaders in the world as it relates to what's going on in the market, how to make investments, how to raise capital, and put all this together, folks, and we are getting a seat at a much bigger table. I'm Coach Micheal Burt. I can't wait for you to see this podcast. It's called The Big Table. We're going to help you secure your seat there. Follow along, engage with me, hit that subscribe button. Today we were doing the podcast, and he pulled up the technology, and let's just pretend for a second I'm on his platform, and you're taking a Coach Burt course. And as you're taking the course, you could sit there and say, Coach Burt, you could sit there and role play with me through AI. You could sit there and say, hey, I lost my prey drive. How do I get back today? I don't feel like making calls. What do I need to do? Or hey, how do I need to make this sales call? And it'll just sit there and it sounds like me with my Southern accent and everything. And it's like it just goes back and forth with you as if I was right there with you. Therefore, you could literally have a coach 24/7 asking it questions and it answering those questions as you're watching the courses. So it's pretty fascinating. That company's called Fuel, by the way.
Yeah, check it out. It's the most remarkable thing I could have ever hoped for. All I brought was the idea and the relationships, because I knew a person. This is not going to surprise you. I called a person, Mac Anderson, who lives here in Franklin, and I said, Mac's my publisher, and I said to Mac, Mac, I'm starting a company. I need 50 authors. He goes, no problem. In 2 days, I had 50 authors from Mac Anderson that I wanted to invite to our platform. And so now these authors are scratching their head going, So I've been flying around the world teaching, and then I leave the stage, and I have no freaking idea if I made a difference or not. I think I did. I felt good. The audience applauded and gave me a standing ovation. And now what you know is when you leave, I can literally, if we had the AI teed up here, in a half an hour from us being done, if you were on fuel, this would be on your phone with the implementation guide, the top steps to implement based on our hour together, and you can AI with me until you're tired of me. And I will guide you and teach you and do everything with you. And it's 28 cents a minute to be coached in the modern world. And this does not replace live coaching. This is the augment. So I want coach, if he's coaching for a day, I want everybody who's coaching to coach with him every day and then come back for the live update, the accountability meeting, and kind of see where we're going. So it doesn't replace that. Just like this technology company doesn't replace live events. I'm just not signing the contracts anymore. So guess what? I sold my event company. And the guys that bought my company are now in charge of paying the bills. Smart. Why would I be in the event business anymore? Hire me to come to your event. That's fine. But I'm not going to be in the event. I'm never going to sign a personal guarantee again in my life. You know the pressure of guaranteeing 4,000 room nights at a hotel? And if nobody shows, you have to write a check. Do you know the pressure of signing a contract for $300,000 in coffee and muffins and fruit? So curiosity is king. I mean, stay curious. How can I do this better? How can I do this more efficiently? I'll give you an idea. You ready? So when you think about time, right? I wrote a New York Times bestseller. It became a bestseller in 21 days, and it's called Time Traps: Proven Strategies for Swamped People. And I teach a concept called one-timing. You would be so surprised how much time you spend 2-timing, 3-timing, 4-timing, 5-timing, 6-timing, 7-timing, 20-timing, 300 timing, blah, 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 blah. And people go, what's an example of that? Well, so in my consultations, I realized that borrowers would ask me the same questions all the time. And I got really, really good at answering those questions. And then I figured, why am I answering these questions? Why don't I just record a video, answer all the questions, and have it delivered to their house before they meet with me? That way I don't have to answer them. And I shaved 20 minutes off the typical borrower consultation. So now in 1 hour, I could do 3 consultations instead of 1. And I would update that maybe once a year. But that's one timing. I have a marketing letter I wrote in 1988 that I still sell today. It is so good. And think about that. I wrote it in 1988. There's, 5 million people that paid me for it. That's pretty cool. It's a letter.
Would you say one of your skill sets, because we're really big on the monetization of a skill set, okay? A lot of the people that I coach here, most people do not know their primary skill. If we were to go around the room tonight, there's 100 people in here, and I'd say, what's your primary skill? And what problem are you uniquely qualified to solve? And who would pay you the most money to solve that problem? 8, 9 out of 10 people could not tell you, right? Mm-hmm. You seem to have a knack and unique ability for monetization, like because you've been in all kinds of businesses, right? Mm-hmm. Talk a little bit about how you see monetization.
So if I want to make, and I'll drop a mic. If I want to make $50,000 an hour, I have to do things that create $50,000 an hour. If I want to make $5,000 an hour, I have to do things that create $5,000 an hour. And by the way, you cannot believe in this room, and if you leave here tonight thinking that there is a limit to your monetization of your skill set, you need to reset your belief, because here's the deal. When you think about limits financially, your belief about earning more stops. And I disagree wholeheartedly with the comment, money doesn't make you happy. Now, in a very fair way, in a real way, I know a lot of people that have a lot of money, and they are pitiful people to be around because they're not happy anyway. No, all the money in the world is not going to make them happy. But I've had money, and I have not had money. And I'm just going to tell you, I'm happier when I have it.
I'm happy when I'm flying private.
Well, right, you know, and so it's
True story.
So I'll give you an example. When I bought my jet, it was like I could do 3 speeches in a day instead of flying commercial and being on one. So why don't I just monetize the jet that way? And for 10 years or so, that's all I did was like, why would I be in airports and get my head pounded in by people that are pissed off and, you know, hurrying around and, you know, lines and delays and all this stuff? Why would I do that? You know, now you may say, well, you had access to it. No, I was a loan officer who was broke. I had 2 more weeks on a $1,000 draw, and my dad told me never to put anything on a credit card if you couldn't pay for it in full within 30 days. Think about that operating system. So not only am I going to run out of income, there's no way that I in good conscience can charge anything on that card because I know I don't have the money coming in. Okay? I've had 3 moments in my life where I've had millions and millions and millions of dollars stolen from me. 3 different embezzlement occasions over a 30-year career, the biggest of which was $11 million. So I've lost it, I've had it. I'd much rather have it. So then it gets down to, like my mentor said, so what do you do during the day? And I go, well, part of the time I stand at the photocopy machine. He goes, why are you doing that? And I go, because I got photocopy stuff. And he goes, no, you don't. And I go, why not? And he goes, because it's not a highest and best use task. And I go, who's going to do it? He goes, that doesn't matter. You got to figure out how to get somebody else to do it, because if you can make $1,000 an hour and you're doing a $10 an hour job, you will be broke your whole life. And so I said, okay. And then, by the way, I'm not skilled to fix a copier, you know, a paper jam. I'll open any door that'll open. I'll turn any handle that'll turn. I'll shut the door. And if a little red arrow still shows up, I'll open the door and shut it harder. That's how I fix copiers. And that was given to me. That was given to me 40 years ago, right? I don't enter data. Why? Doesn't pay the bills. You know, what do? I talk to people every day that can advance my influence in the world. That's it. And then I do things like this that can give back and add and, you know, be in Nashville. But, you know, when I started measuring my hourly rate, the goal was to get to $10,000 a month. And it was not to work 50 hours to do, it was to do 40 hours. And then it was to get to $20,000 a month and do it in 30 hours. And then it was to get to $30,000 a month and do it in 25 hours. And I just kept doing that to the point where I'm going to be in Louisville next week for $50,000 for a 90-minute speech. And they pay for everything. So, you know, and that was my journey, but it wasn't, I mean, the only thing you can monetize is your labor. And I don't know any of your stories. My story is my mother did not have a good childhood. And she put that out on me when I was young, that I would be a failure my whole life. She told me I would never amount to anything. I love my mother really, really a lot, but that was a hard trauma. And when I got into business, part of what drove monetization was to prove my mom wrong. Yeah. And I did that, but I realized when I was 27, I had a meeting with Dennis Waitley, and we sat down. He had me try to heal that trauma, and he said, you're much bigger than that now. You don't have to prove anything to your mother. You never did, you never have to again. Be your best for you and be proud of you, and let that kind of heal itself. And most of us bring at some level something that hurts a little bit, right? But what I found is when I told my dad, who always blew wind under my wings, when I told my dad about how my mom was treating me, he said, yeah, that's it. She treats me the same way too. And they got separated for 5 years, and thank the Lord that they got back together and spent 65 years together in total before they both passed away a couple years ago. And but my dad, when I told my dad, I said, Dad, you know what? The gift of mom is that I've got about 9 million clients in the world that if I had not tried to prove my mom wrong, I wouldn't have had the blessing of knowing I got to impact their lives. And I told my dad, because I said, Dad, when you told me I wouldn't be a good doctor, I wanted to make sure he knew this before he passed away. And I told him, I said, that driveway conversation that we had, I want you to know that whenever God takes you home, that you pouring into me that way allowed me to change the lives of millions and millions and millions of people. And I wanted my dad to know that I'm forever grateful to him for that. And yeah, so, do the best you can for the reasons that are, don't worry about tomorrow. Tomorrow's going to come soon enough. Forgive yourself for yesterday, because yesterday is only about the lessons you've learned and the changes you make. The Bible tells us to not worry about tomorrow. Tomorrow's the future. So it's to not worry about the past, I forgive all that. That's yesterday. And the only gift we have is today. You could be dead tomorrow. You could cross the street and be hit by one of those buses. You could all be over, and you'd be really, here's the deal. You won't feel the regret when you die, but everybody else around you will. And I've struggled with this, just to always try to keep a balance on things. And let me give you a secret to balance. This is a huge secret. I wrote a book called Snorkeling at 10 a.m., and it was all about making life a priority and making business second. And it was a great idea until the global financial crisis hit. And the book was still being written, and it was titled Snorkeling at 10 a.m. And my publisher said, there's not a lot of people going snorkeling these days. We need to change it. And so I came up with this idea, and I said, okay, so I went back to my publisher, and I go, all right, I want to call the book Balance is Bullshit. 101 Lies About Living Life Well. Because between the time that I'd written Snorkeling at 10 a.m. and the GFC, my balance had fallen apart. And I had to get honest with that. I was working harder than I've ever worked. I was making less than I ever made. I had sold one company, and then I had somebody buy a company, and then they fired me from my own company for missing 4 days of work while my wife was dying from cancer. And it was just like a storm of like, how do I praise you in this storm, right? And at the end of the day, it was like, okay, I've really got to get my life around the things that matter most. And so I renamed the book Life on the Wire. Life on the Wire. And from my research, I called the flying Walendas, who some of you will remember from the circus, others of you will not, but with the flying Walendas always walked the high wire without a net. They trained at 12 inches off the ground so that they could perform at 70 feet off the ground. And I asked Tino Walenda, I said, what's the key to being balanced on the high wire? And he said, the same in life. And I go, what do you mean? He goes, the problem in trying to be balanced in life is you ignore the things that are priorities and then you overcorrect to try to fix them. If you overcorrect on the high wire, you fall. He said the key to being balanced in life is to make the little adjustments and to have the daily resets. And just understand, it's going to be a lot easier for me to be 1% better tomorrow telling my wife I love her than waiting a month and trying to do it 30 times in one day. And that's all it is. It's like you can't go back to the gym and say, I'm going to get in shape by Friday. If you've been out of the gym for a year, you can't do that. So I would encourage you to look at this life wheel and just say, what are the areas that matter most? And I have 100 successisms on fuel. They're 3-minute super shots, right? And one of them is this successism. The longer you ignore a priority, the more of a priority it will become.
Now, I want to go back to something you said.
Sorry.
That was good. Was that good or what? It's like, hey, hello, are you there?
Can we bring the whiskey up here and just go till 10?
I want to go back to something you said because I think when you have kind of a knockdown in life and somebody doesn't believe in you and it puts a little steam in your engine, no matter who that person is, if you could ever learn to say thank you, I owe you. Right? If you ever hear Robbins talk about his mother, Tony Robbins' mother was terrible to him. She poured liquid soap down his throat. She told him he'd never do anything. She made him quit everything that he wanted to do because she wanted to control him because he was the only man in the house. And And, and so he said one day, should I be mad at her, should I thank her? Because I would not be who I am, right? I wouldn't have become Peter Robbins if she would have been everything I wanted her to be. So how do I go say thank you? And I was thinking about that when you're talking about your dad saying you'll never be a doctor, or your mom saying that. It's like what they really did is put some intrinsic motivation, some what I call steam in the engine. And everybody needs that steam in the engine. Now, Todd and I were talking about this today. I come from an athletic world.
Before you go,
yes.
Will you remember what you're about to ask?
Yes, of course.
Okay. My son is here, Matt Duncan. He's 27 years old. He's got the orange hat on, 4 rows back. Matt, will you forgive me for making you eat jalapenos every time you backtalked me?
Oh, I like this. This is a new. I'm learning something tonight.
Okay. Woo.
Great. Okay. And you kind of said it reluctantly, Matt. So.
Okay, back to coaching.
Okay, so I come from the athletic world, right?
Yeah.
And when I look back on my career, we literally practiced 5.5 hours. I spent 5.5 hours a day with those players. Okay, I get into corporate America. I retire from that and I start coaching companies, banks, mortgage companies, insurance companies. And I noticed that nobody ever got any better because nobody ever trained. There was no training. There was no development of people. There was no system. I'm talking like basic things, okay? So when you and I were talking today about fuel, let's just put a real life example. If a person came and saw me coach today and they're a member, and we trained on Proximity to Power, which is Jana's book, and we trained on that for a day, in your system, they could go back and train and pitch and catch as much as they want after they come to that one day of training.
It's unlimited until you run out of minutes. And then you just buy more minutes. It's like you pay $280 for an annual subscription, which means you have 1,100 lessons of how to be your best in life and finance and business and health, and all of this are all micro lessons, less than 3 or 4 minutes long. And we invented the company to be a PaaS, not a SaaS company. PaaS means performance as a service. We're not interested in just saying something to you. We're interested in, do you get it? And do you understand it? I was telling Coach when I learned how to become a pilot, it was like the only thing I was not good at was landing.
I definitely want you flying my plane.
I mean, I'm in the simulator. I get all that. I've read the textbooks, and I get all that. And I remember one day I went home, and my wife said, "You look like you saw Jesus." And I go, "I think I did." And she goes, "Where?" And I go, "I don't know." It wasn't where. It was like, how many times did I see him? And it was like every time I landed, I thought, 9 out of 10 landings, the CFI had to take the yoke. I was going to crash. And she looks at me and she goes, "Just do what you teach people." I need some empathy right now. I don't need you to tell me well, yeah, but you gotta go practice more. So it took me 167 landings from that day I walked in the back door having seen Jesus before my CFI would say, "Okay, you can land a plane." I was telling Coach that there was one moment in San Diego where I was going to get on my jet, and Joe Montana was in the same FBO, and he was going to get on his jet. I was going east. He was going back up to San Fran, and it was just the two of us. And I said, "Hey, man," and we had seen each other a couple times. And I said, "Hey, man, I want to ask you a question." And you had to go fast last time. And I said, "How many hours does it take for you to prepare every single week for a football game on Sunday or Monday?" And he goes down to his hand, he starts hitting his fingers, and he looks at me, and he goes, "Probably 50 hours. And so I look at him, and I go, "So you have a 50-to-1 practice to play ratio?" And he pauses for a second, and he says, "No, it's probably more like 100-to-1. And I go, "Well, I do the math. A football game's an hour. You're practicing 50 hours. He goes, "Yeah, but I'm only on the field for 25 minutes. And so I came up with this thought. I'll give it to you. Write it down. If I don't practice more than I play, When I play, I will look like I haven't practiced.
Yep.
What Fuel is a practice platform, and it's a safety platform. Most people practice in public, and that is the wrong place to practice. My father told me when I was 13, when we went to Cincinnati and he showed me the hospital that he was in, we walked into the cadaver room, and my dad looked at me and he goes, "Hey, do you know why doctors practice on dead people?" And I go, "No, why?" And he goes, "Because when they're alive, we don't want to kill them." And I learned right then and there from my dad. I said, if I ever do anything, I'm going to practice. And so somebody said, "Well, so you practice on people that don't count?" No, you practice in private. And so Gerhard Geschwanter, who owns a Selling Power media empire, was the guy whose magazine was on my car seat when I was 23 learning scripting. And I was telling Coach that I'd go to Radio Shack, buy my Radio Shack recorder and audio cassette, and I'd handwrite out my responses to the objections and everything I was getting. And I would listen to them in my car and practice and practice and practice. And if you've watched Quarterback on Netflix, you can see that these guys are following plays. They are following plays and practicing the plays. And I was also telling Coach that the top 2% of salespeople in the world practice 3 hours for every 1 hour of performance. If you were in the NFL, that practice to play ratio would last 2 to 3 weeks and you would be out of the league. So that shows you the elevation of how, like if we really want to be great, it takes more practice than it does knowledge. It takes more practice. And by the way, watch this. Do you know why people have fear in business? Do you know why salespeople have call reluctance? Fear. Fear of what? Fear of what might happen. So they literally give their power away to an event that hasn't happened. Like, what's your name? Josh. I'm going to make a call on Josh. And I think, holy cow, man, last time I made a call, it hurt. The guy said no, and he said, never call me back again. I wonder what Josh is going to say. Well, if I call Josh and I'm in that state, this is not going to work out very well. But if I go from call reluctance to call excitement, because I'm so practiced that I can call Josh and I can say, hey, Josh, it's Todd Duncan. What's your name? Rick. Hey, Josh, it's Todd Duncan. I was given your name by Rick. He's a buddy of yours. He wanted me to introduce you to a business building idea. It'll take about 60 seconds. Is this a good time?
Yeah, you know Rick?
Yeah, I know Rick. You know Rick.
Yeah.
Here's the real question, though. Do you like Rick?
Absolutely.
Yeah, so Rick likes you, too. And I'll say that, absolutely. But you got 60 seconds?
Sure.
So I know you own a business. I know you want to expand your customer base. I know you don't have enough money to do that. How about I teach you an idea on how you can take every single customer and turn them into 10 referrals in the next 30 days? Would you be interested in meeting?
Absolutely. It sounds
Okay, great.
productive.
What, tomorrow?
I have to look at my schedule.
No, there, you don't have time to look at your schedule. You're already failing. Pick a time.
How about lunch?
Lunch, I don't do lunch. Lunch is overrated. I work on an hourly rate, and lunch, I got to pay for it. I don't earn anything.
What time works for you?
Anytime before lunch.
I prefer breakfast food.
Perfect. Breakfast is good as long as it's just coffee. I don't eat.
Sounds good.
Okay, because eating distracts us. No, we need to be present.
Perfect.
I'm going to make you an extra $1 million. So, but if you role play that for 100 hours, I had a guy 2 days ago that called me and he said, I made 31 grand today. I go, how the hell did you do that? He goes, I role played with you, Denise, and Amir for 61 minutes, and then I made 5 sales calls.
No.
He said the last sales call was a live call, and I listened to you and role played with you in the parking lot before I went in and met with the person. Let's get game ready, man.
Yeah.
No fear.
Well,
Fear.
let me say something to that because if a person goes to my website and they want to buy one of our products, like Package Your Purpose, I'm teaching tomorrow and Friday, if they don't purchase it, it comes to me as an abandoned cart. That means they went there to the page and they did not buy it, and then I call those people, right? And I say, hey, man, and I personally call them. I don't farm it out to a salesperson. I say, hey, this is Coach Burt. I noticed you went to Package Your Purpose, but you didn't purchase. right? And is there a reason that you didn't purchase? And today, this guy, I'm doing this to this guy, and this morning, and he texts back, stop.
Like stop, like he wants to exit
don't
out of.
don't contact me. And I go, well, I was just contacting you. I mean, because when you showed interest in this and you seemed like you wanted to do it. And he said, if this is the real Coach Burt, call me right now. He thought it was a bot or something. So I FaceTimed him. And I go, hey man, it's Coach Burt, good morning. And he's like, what? Like it's really talking to you? Yes, it's talking to you. So man, you seem like you want to do this. What would stop you from doing it, right? Because here's the deal. I changed my mind about rejection. You can change your mind about rejection. You can tell yourself there is no such thing as rejection. Some will, some won't. So what? Let's keep on moving. I'm only looking for people that are looking for me.
Except when tenacity takes over skill development.
Yep.
Do not keep doing what doesn't work.
That's right.
Amen.
Yep.
Okay, and so I'm the most tenacious person in the world. But if something isn't working and it hasn't worked 3 times, and maybe I give it a 4th, I'm going to change that, whatever it is. It could be big, it could be small, it could be like. And somebody told me it's. Oh, you ready for this? This is huge. So I'm at the seminar, and this guy says, if it takes you 10 calls to get a yes, and the yes is worth $1,000, every time you heard the word no, you put $100 in your pocket. Just visualize you put $100 in your pocket. And I'm sitting here and I'm just really troubled. I'm really troubled. I mean, this is an honest to God story. I'm sitting here listening to this guy speaking to thousands of people about just keep calling. That is the stupidest thing in the world. Why would you keep calling when every time you call it hurts? And we only get one time to make a great first impression. Well, somebody says I got to make 5 calls. Well, then great, 5 calls. So now I'm trying to make a great second impression. Then that goes badly. And now I'm trying to make a good third impression. Pretty soon I'm SOL. So I go up to this guy and I say, I do not like your numbers. And he goes, what do you mean? I go, first of all, nobody can visualize $100 going in their pocket. It's not there. And certainly there's not 900 there before they get a yes. And he goes, do you have a better formula? And I said, yeah, I do. He goes, what is it? And I said, how about be so good that 1 call equals 1 deal?
That's good.
And he goes, you're naive. And I go, nope, I'm rich. And what was so interesting about that is I said to him, I go, what you're not taking into consideration is how bad the 9 no's feel and how ill-equipped somebody is to get back up like Bozo the Clown when I was a kid, right?
Yeah.
And get back up and go get punched again and get back up and go. And this is why salespeople don't sell. This is why they call busyness production. And, it's just, why work 8 hours a day when you're only making money an hour? Because you're scared to death. Why not just get good? So watch this. Competence leads to confidence. Confidence leads to consistency. Consistency leads to compounding. Compounding leads to wealth. Just get good.
Yep.
Get good, and then you don't. Watch this. Here, write this down. The better I get at business, the better business gets for me. The better I get at business, the better business gets for me. Be good, and then be great. And by the way, how do you do that? Practice, but what do you practice on? Your coach brought it up. You ready for this? This is a mic drop. Don't try to get good at what you suck at. Do not try to get good at what God left out. He will win. He gave you a strength. He gave you a core DNA, unlike anybody else in the world. He gave you something you're really good at, and we call it your calling, right? And thank the Lord that my dad told me I'd be a bad doctor. I wouldn't have been happy, I wouldn't have been joyful, and I guarantee you I wouldn't have had 9 million patients. And so I went with my gift. And the other thing about what you asked earlier is the more you go with your gift, the less you do. Accept your gift. And the greatest joy in the world is when you trade labor, which is life force, with your gift. And when you go home, you have joy. Nothing should be hard all the time. And you should have these breakthrough moments where hard is hard, and yes, it hurts, and yes, it's a big lesson. But you should never try to get good at what God left out.
All right, last question.
No.
I mean, they'll go crazy if we don't get them to the whiskey, I think, at some point. Okay.
Seriously? You'd rather drink than learn? No, I'm kidding. I'm kidding.
We can take some
I'm not
questions
gonna, you guys can all get a hold of me on fuel.
what-
You buy a subscription of fuel and we can talk every day. I swear, you'll never get tired of me. Hey, Todd.
What's
Yeah.
the power of, okay, so this is your first time to the Greatness Factory, right? You've seen it, heard about it, but this is the first time here.
Mm-hmm.
What's the power of people being around positive expectancy, being around other people that want them to be better, right? Modeling behavior, seeing somebody play it. Because your original story is a guy walked into the office, he looked like $1 million, he had an appointment, and that exposed you to like, hey, when I grow up, I want to be like that dude. What's the power of these people coming, being involved, being engaged, being reactivated? Talk about what a Greatness Factory means to you.
Well, the first thing I would say is everybody has their greatness. Greatness is not some privilege. It's not some elusive thing that we go after and we hope we get there. I think what most of us miss is the aggregation of marginal gain. I think we miss the idea that greatness doesn't happen in a day, but it happens daily. And your choice to pursue greatness daily will outperform any minute you spend on the job just being normalized. And so part of this energy here is you're with winners. Nobody's here because they're bored and wanted to come by on a Wednesday night and hang out in this theater and have a few drinks, right? You're all here. You believe in this. You believe in the experience here. You believe. My dad told me when I was 16, he said, there's 3 dudes you're hanging with that if you hang with them between now and the time you graduate, you might be dead. And my grandmother gave me a book when I was 16 called Success Through a Positive Mental Attitude. It was written by Napoleon Hill and W. Clement Stone. And I learned attitude was important. And that was the one thing that helped me defeat my mother's psychology. In my own mind was my positivity. And there's a quote in that book, I'll never forget it. That quote in the book says, there's very little difference between successful people and unsuccessful people. But the little difference makes the big difference. The little difference is attitude, and the big difference is whether it's positive or not. My friend, Dr. Martin Seligman, has determined that if you are at least 51% optimistic and only 49% pessimistic, you will outsell somebody who's pessimistic 51 and only optimistic 49 by up to 32%. If you can take your optimism, glasses half full, all the way up to like glasses overflowing, and you do that, you can outperform any salesperson in the world by 72%. You will worry less days about money. You will have less stress. You'll have more joy, more happiness. Happy people produce more revenue. So the pursuit of greatness is what it's about. You're never going to be your best. You will always just become better. And you don't get do-overs. There's no such thing as a do-over. It's only a do better. And that's the value of mistakes. And I'll give you a final lesson. When I had a massive failure, I bought John Maxwell's companies, and my wife was diagnosed with terminal cancer. There's a whole bunch of reasons why none of this worked out good on the business front. But at the end of the day, I sold that company. The company I sold it to then came in while my wife was in hospice and told me that because I missed 4 days of speaking, I had a contract when I sold the company, I had to speak 60 days a year. And because I only spoke 56 days, they were going to terminate me for violating my contract. My wife is dying. She's literally in hospice. And I get fired from my own company. And that happened on the 22nd of December. It was pretty hard to make up 4 speaking gigs. between the 22nd of December and the end of the year. And that was very, 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 very rough. And my wife passes away. I end up losing, I don't know, $9 million. And I got two boys that are 13 and 11 that lost their mom. And I got to figure out, this was not part of my life plan. And I came up with this idea, write your life plan in pencil and prepare to pivot. Because your life plan is not anything like God's life plan for you. And so what ended up happening is Darren Hardy calls me from Success Magazine. He goes, hey, we're working on an issue, and I want you to be in it. And I go, what's the issue? And he goes, it's called the Big Fat Failure Issue. And I'm going, and so how do you want me to participate? And he goes, you have some pretty serious failure, and you got through it. And I need you to tell your story. And I go, there's no way. He goes, why? And I go, it's too scary. And he goes, why? And I go, because this is the biggest failure of my life. And he goes, so? And I go, well, he goes, listen, there's millions of business people around the world that need to hear your story. And they need to hear your story because you're still going. And you made it through some of the toughest challenges of your life. And there are people that quit with not nearly anywhere close to the amount of failure you've suffered in the last 2 years. You lose your wife, you lose your money, you lose your business, blah, 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 blah. And I go, okay, I'll agree to do it. He goes, okay. So we set up the time, we do this interview. If you want to hear the story, I'll give you the link. Just give it to all your coaching members. I do it. He calls me in December. This went live in October. He calls me in December and says, just so you know, there's been 1 million downloads so far. I go, what? He goes, ends up, people want to hear from people that know how to fail well. Come on, Darren. I don't know how to fail well. I couldn't do anything else but survive. I got two boys who lost their mom. What am I going to do? And at the end of the day, we kept working together and working together and working together. At the end of the first 12 months, there have been 5 million downloads. And 4 years later, it hit 10 million. So all of a sudden, my failure was able to inspire 10 million entrepreneurs around the world on how to fail well. And by the way, the only way to avoid any failure is to not move. And that in and of itself is a failure. Be a risk taker. Be a balanced risk taker. People go, well, I don't want to be a risk taker. Well, by not being a risk taker, you're making risk. Yeah. So I guess that would be kind of how I ended that. Here's the deal. Forgave my mom. All that worked out great. She passed away April of last year. And the one thing I'll love her for 2 reasons. She smuggled Bibles behind the Iron Curtain for Jesus. And she was a faith warrior. And I will love her for that. And the only other thing I'll love her for is one of her most brilliant comments is, there's no such thing as perfection this side of heaven. Mm. So lighten up. Release the brakes. Do your best. It's all going to work out. God's got a plan for you. Stay connected. Practice every day. Practice every day. James Clear, who wrote Atomic Habits, said that if you get better 1% a day in a discipline you decide to get 1% better in, at the end of a year, you'll be 37 times better, 37x better. Imagine if you just follow this guy, jump onto fuel, and the two of us get to help you go to the promised land. It's just like the education's out there. The knowledge is out there.